Welcome back to Comedy or Worse. I'm here with a very special guest,
Remii Perez.
Yay! I didn't used to prep people, and most people got it, but then there's a few people that were like, what do you want me to do?
You do want not only a consistent, you want to see the evolution of it, right? You want to see how people were at first, and you want to see when people get the hang of it, and then you want to add on to it every once in a while, change it up.
Yeah, like right now, I'm also like listening back to like, older podcasts and like why I started, this podcast, and it's like, oh yeah, they don't have a list of questions. They just have like a more general outline, and it's like, oh, that's a better podcast. So
I was gonna say, once you have that set of I like these go-to questions because I asked this question and I had a good feedback, and you take what you liked about that feedback, what made that feedback interesting, and now that becomes a secondary question. So instead of just the question, you now have a follow-up question that, say, the person doesn't answer.
Yeah, but it's also like this crazy choose your own adventure path.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would just switch gears just because that was the next question, instead of letting the conversation naturally flow.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I'm trying to get better at it. Like right now, I haven't even asked you the first question yet.
Yeah, your mind is discovering new paths, and it's trying to fill in the gaps of what it doesn't know. So you already know how to respond to this question, or how to ask this question to get this response. But now there's a thing that you went this way and a thing you went this way, but you haven't gotten.
Well, also there's a certain level of quality of the podcast, and it's kind of it's plateaued, up or down. I'm trying to make it go more
that's
up for the audio listeners. Trying to make it go up,
creativity. You gotta new paths, especially more creative paths, right?
Yeah, you can be creative and just also be more free form, loosey goosey.
Start doing hand puppets. What? This man was crazy on the cast. He was doing hand puppets. He was doing feet puppets.
Yeah, definitely. So, are you using a stage name?
No. It's a very interesting concept that people used to have a stage name. You couldn't go up there and be like, I'm just Craig Wilson. They would be like, dude, I'm the crazy clown Wilson. And you're like, no, you gotta already got the
Was a requirement, or?
I think it was they saw it worked for somebody, and then somebody else copied it and did it better, and then somebody else copied it and did it better. And I think because there was such a line of productivity from that thing, people thought that was pretty much the only way to do it. And for a good amount of time, it probably was. I mean, I think there's a difference between seeing somebody get successful in the spotlight of all the things, because there used to be a gatekeeper kind of a concept, right? But now it's just, you could be in a room and see that this person might not be on TV, but they crush it. So you're like, you don't need the gimmick to crush it. You're living the moment. This is the height of it.
Yeah, because it's small enough TV, and when I'm on it, it just crushes it.
I mean, hey, yeah, that's what they put the TV in your pocket. That's right.
Yeah.
You crush it every day, metaphorically, physically. Yeah, both at the same time. Throw your phone on the stage.
I've been inside a TV, but it almost cut me.
Remember when the TVs used to be this big and this wide?
Yeah.
Man.
It took.
You could be homeless inside of the TV. You could scoop it all out what was that thing in Star Wars? A Yeti? It wasn't a Yeti. It was a Tauntaun. There you go. Cuts it open.
I thought you meant the metal thing. You were talking about the actual.
Yeah. I mean, he did cut that open too. He'd be cutting things open and crawling inside. There's probably a lot of sexual metaphors that we don't. They got the little stick. You use your stick to open it up, crawl inside. They never used an X formation to open it. It was always one big slice,
More efficient.
Yeah, more V-shape. Metaphors. It's not only in Disney.
Yeah, that was before Disney.
Yeah. Did you know what's your favorite question to ask? Let me ask that. What's the one that gets you going when you're just
what is your writing process?
Writing process. Oh. Well, we'll precursor that with, I'll say I don't have the most efficient writing process, but when I'm doing a good job at the writing process, I like making a bubble, and I like drawing a few lines off of it and going, okay, here's my topic. My topic is going to be this. This is what I want to talk
It's
about.
crazy. No one's ever set a bubble.
Yeah, you just draw a little circle. I'm also like ADHD, so like I don't do well in like I guess like into the lines. I do a lot of outside of the line drawings. You know, my mind's like very scattered. So I'm more of a visual representator. Have you ever been asked, or not asked, but there's a concept of how people learn, right? So some people, if you say the word dog, they think of a dog. They have a picture of a dog, like right. For other people, they see the word dog written out. For other people, they don't even see the word dog. They just think of whatever is associated. So everybody's mind is different. I'm a very visual learner. You could say a bunch of words, but if I don't have a visual concept for it, I'm either A, doing the best I can to get to what is closest to it, or B, I'm rehearsing whatever the previous thought was, you know? So when it comes to like writing out the jokes, I do well in like chunks because I want my jokes to have more than just the premise. You know, like premise punchline is good, but I want to have premise punchline, but this is the centerpiece. This is where we're staying, and we're gonna come back to this. But we're gonna venture off this way, and I want to have a few punchlines that way. I want to have a few, you know, laughs and giggles this way, and then I want you to come back to the premise, and then I want to go a different direction, you know. So it could be something like, oh, I saw an old lady do this and this and this, you know, and then, you know, if you get a laugh off of that, it's like, but what would be the opposite of that, or what would be adjacent to it? Not just an old lady, but what about like an old? Yeah. So you have the circle, you draw a line this way, and it branches off this way, but then you come back to your center, and then you have a line that comes this way, and then it branches off that way.
What he's doing is he's going to the right at first, and he's going to the left.
Exactly.
Just for the audio listeners, we gotta like think of
right to the left. Yes. Think of a circle and give it. First, give it a small dick line. Go straight down. Then give it a left ear, and it goes upward to the left, and then a right ear, it goes up to the right, and then you can main off from there. You know?
Yeah. Sweet.
I do like a good like a parallel joke where it's just like, okay, this person did all this, but what if somebody adjacent to that concept did the same exact thing, right? It's very parallel, like easy to concept, like, oh, you're just copying and pasting. And then it's also fun to go reverse order where it's like, okay, an older person did that, but like, what if they got younger instead of older during the concept? Or, you know, somebody from a different dimension, what would they do, you know? What's a fictitious?
So different dimension or parallel universe? Or?
Yeah, you get different perceptions of it, and it's fun to sit in the first one, and then if you could find a different version of that that's more fun, especially if it's sillier. I think starting off with like a real concept that people can understand, like that's real, I get that, I've seen that, or people have talked about that.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we have our core concept, now let's go to a silly area where we could laugh about it or not take it as seriously.
Right.
Yeah. The sillier the better, but it's not always serious. The more I bomb, the more I go, oh, these were just facts. These weren't just nothing. You could be interesting, you could be witty, but if it's not funny, it's not funny.
Yeah. So in the multiverse, do you feel like you're following the optimal path, or do you wish like you had started comedy earlier, or?
I think I had to have gone through enough things. So maybe in a different universe, I went through everything quicker, or I just figured things out quicker.
Yeah.
But I think in this universe, I'm a very I need to touch the stove, get burned, and be like, stove hot. Now I know stove hot. And I touch the ice and I go, you know, sometimes it's cold and you get stuck, and that hurts just as bad, you know. So I have to experience it, and now I have a plethora of things to put around. Yeah, don't touch. Stop touching things. Yeah, you get an infection, you get diarrhea. Don't touch it.
Your fingers are wet. Don't touch something hot or cold.
Yeah. Wash head from toe, head to toe. Don't wash toe to head. You know what I'm saying? Touch it.
That's right. Yeah. Somebody just learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I'm that person. I learned the hard way. What was the movie 300, where it's like only the strongest survive, and they just always get like the rigorous beat down, and it's just like so many of them, all the kids die out, and they're like, well, we only make the strongest ones survive. It's like, I'm the get back up kid. I'm not the person who figured it out right away, but I'm like, yeah, after getting hit so many times, I'm gonna figure out how to dodge, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Adaptation. I feel like most comics, if you're a good comic, if you're a decent comic, you've adapted at some point. I don't think anybody who's done like really good right off the bat ends up doing well in the end, because if you only had one process and you were very lucky and fortunate during that process, it eventually wears out. Yeah, you're eventually going to be in a new scenario that you're going to have to adapt to. You know, you could live in your niche. That's for somebody. I mean, we all know somebody who's telling the same jokes for like 40, 50 years. and you're just like, you don't want to use any new lines, and like they just stay in that pocket.
Right. Yeah.
But then there's people who are like, I switch up my style.
I just recorded a video where I just thought of something in the moment. It started with the voice, and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna. Why? I was sort of saying it out loud in my way. I might just record this and see where it goes. And then I just ran out of time. It hasn't actually posted yet, but I'm like, I just had to remind myself. Wait a minute. I got like just worry about the audience in the moment. You know, not worry about all this other stuff.
I would say audience is important, and it's not that it's not important. It's that where do you feel like the excitement, but also semi-controlled it? You know, like you're excited to be in this new area. It's similar to something you understand and been around, but it's also you're gonna practice some new things. You know,
Yeah.
that's what conversations with other people are about. You've been conversing with so many other people on a very specific platform, so you have your control, but you now have a new variable, and you're excited to see how you could use all of your previous control measures to, you know, have a new outcome because of the new variable.
Right.
Your brain's filling in all the gaps.
Yeah. So when you're doing new jokes in an open mic, just in front of comics, do you feel like that's helpful, or
it's a different muscle? Yeah, because if you so like say somebody bombs before you, the bar is set low, right? So it's not exactly the hardest thing to do better than the person who didn't do great, right? If somebody crushes it before you, it's like the expectation's high. But now you're in front of comics that have heard your thing 1,000 times over. They know your style, they know who you are off stage a lot of the time, you know? So when you're performing in front of other comics, it is like you are more anxious to say something original and to be slightly charismatic, because you have to have wherewithal, right? You're in a room full of people who don't know you. You don't really have to have too much wherewithal, except for maybe who they are, right? Like you see a bunch of business suits, you know, play to that. You know your audience, right? But if you have a bunch of random people who are practicing getting good at original, hilarious statements, you're playing the game of how do I say something original? How do I say something that is interesting? And how do I say something that is going to make their soul giggle? Even if they don't giggle out loud. Because, you know, some comics don't like you, some comics are obsessed, it's just a pleasure.
They're trying to remember what jokes they're going to do.
Yeah, they're in their own heads most of the time. Most of the time, they're just thinking, I'm going to do way better than that when I get up there. And it's like, nobody's really saying much at an open mic or, you know, a room full of comics. Unless, you know what's crazy is an open mic with a room full of comics, not that funny. But bring all those comics outside, no mic, great time.
Yeah.
Pressure breaks a lot of us because the expectations.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that was kind of the thing I was thinking about. Like I don't know what way from my car to here. I'm like,
it's also
like I keep thinking about this. I'm like so much funnier like when I'm not on stage. It's like okay,
you get
and I've known that for a while. It's just over and over. Like how do I break that down to stop? You know, and I'm like, well, I gotta stop trying to like do these jokes over and over that I already know. They're slowly getting better, and also work on.
Do you do jokes in front of comics that you've already done before? Like if it's a room full of comics, would you do a joke that you practice?
Yeah, sometimes. And then it's nice that when they laugh, even I'm like, well, Jesus, you guys like I've heard this before, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like if I'm trying to like you know, last night at the Grand, I didn't do my most, you know, my pretzel joke. I did the new spin on it about hot dogs, and I didn't perform it that well. I was like, oh well, that's never. I haven't been to that new location, and
you know what's crazy?
Like all these factors. Like there was comics there that know me, and there's a few comics I've never seen before. There was like only 2 other people.
Mm-hmm. It's the self-critic. You being hypercritical of yourself is the very thing that's like I think like most humans don't care to be critical of themselves. They don't care to like change the thing that they've done before because they're just like, oh, I did it before. I don't care about the result. They keep moving on. You know, they have the same phrase that they say. Like, I have a bunch of coworkers at this job, previous jobs, where it's like there's a few dudes who just have a go-to phrase. You know, that's the this for you. You know, and it's just like, okay, we get it. You say that thing and you just move on past it. You don't interact with it. You don't see how people took that in. You just say your thing and you're out. You know. But you know, with comedy, with you telling a joke in any kind of circumstance, you are immediately going, "Oh, I didn't do this part well." Like you know how well it can be, and then there are going to be days where you surprise yourself and you riff and you go, "Oh, that was way better than normal."
Yeah, like there was times where like there's rooms where no one's doing well, and I would just still go and do my best, sell the joke, and it would go well. And then the comments were like, "Well, how did you do that? What are you talking about?"
Your mind is becoming the survival of the fittest. It's like an example of evolution.
But then, like, you know, last night it definitely went down the path of the bad. Well, also, like, I guess the part of the thing is like, I went up first, and the owner of the club had just said, do your best set. Booking, there's an opportunity to be booked off of this, and then so.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So then it seems like this is really fresh for you. Let me ask you, what's your most recent concept that you feel like you're working on? Because it seems like it's really fresh in your brain. Your eyes are moving around, like you're visualizing it, you're reliving it. You can see it, you can smell it.
Well, like it's just a journey of trying to find my comedy voice. How about you? How are you feeling like you're finding your comedy voice? Or?
I think so. I think it's getting more fine-tuned. It's now finding the subject matters. That it's like, okay, I've touched this, I've touched that. There's 11 other things I would love to touch, but somebody else is already touching it. Somebody else is already doing this version of it, that version of it. You don't want to, hop on something that somebody else has already done. You want your own thing, right? So.
Are you talking about your personal life, or?
Well, that's the thing. I don't like. It's not that I don't like digging into my personal life. It's that I don't think my personal life. I don't find a way to make my personal life that hilarious, like stage worthy anyways. Like things can be funny in conversation, things can be funny on stage, but like stage worthy, make people go like, man, not because I feel like there's a few levels of making jokes. There's first one is, oh, I can see how you would think that's humorous. The second one is, oh, that tickled me a bit. The third is like, oh, this was worth coming to tonight, but I might not tell anybody to come here tomorrow. Or I might not even come here again, but I'm glad I came here tonight. Then there's, that was good. Like, if I ever get the chance, I would probably want to see more of either that or that person, And then there's the next level, which is like, I didn't know I could laugh like that. Have you ever laughed so hard that you cried? Like, tears came out?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You ever laughed so hard your cheeks hurt?
Yeah.
You ever laughed so hard your side hurts?
Interviewing me? Okay, what?
Yeah.
I love this. This is great. I'm just... the question is going down the path of having the audience relate to you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? I've seen you do comedy, but now I'm sitting here blanking, and also the audience. Maybe I've never met you before, So it's good.
We've met different versions of each other. That's the other thing too. We meet each other passing by, which is like your
like a lot of times this is the longest conversation anyone's ever had. So, and that's why we recorded, because I wanted.
And putting it on record, he can speak for longer than 15 minutes. Get it right here.
Aaron Trahan and Remii Perez can speak together and not yell at each other. And
then the whole thing is a sham. We've got a bunch of cue cards back there. We memorized all these lines. It was all set for us.
I know. One guy, like, it's not fast enough. Come on! You know how fast I talk? But
finding the comedy voice.
No, that's not in general. For you.
For me.
So, where are you in the process of what is your strategy going up there? Like, are you talking about what you look like? Are you?
I would say this. I have a series of jokes that I think some of them are edgier than the other ones, and so they're more niche. Like, not necessarily niche, but because they are on a more slightly aggressive or graphic topic, less people are either A, willing to laugh about it in public, or B, willing to get over their actual relation to it. I think that's a hard thing to make somebody laugh at something that they don't want to laugh at, especially if it hurts them or if it affected somebody close to them, because they don't know if it's okay for them to laugh at something that's actually real. And I think that there's a series of jokes that when I tell them, you can tell the audience members that reply to it are like, that's a new one for me. Like, I've heard a lot, but I've never heard this. And that's fun, but you only get so many, right? So now I've kind of expanded and I go, okay, let's not go so heavy, not go to the darkest subject, so forth, but not be rated G, but enough not rated R that more people can laugh at this openly.
Sure. Are you using your strongest joke first? Or?
Sometimes I do, because I want to set the tone of like, hey, the rest of this might suck, so just here's the one that lets you know I'm a
like win them
source.
over and prove that you're funny.
I think,
and then they can trust you.
I heard Louis C.K. talk about doing his best joke first, and what it does is it sets the bar for the other jokes. And say he has an A joke, right? He's practiced his joke 1,000 times.
Best, but like,
no, yeah, of course. But
in
in his set, he goes, hey, this is my best joke. This is my closer. This is like what makes you go, dang, I don't even know how you're gonna beat that, right? And then he moves it to the front, and he goes, that's the standard. All my other jokes are B, C, D, G-rated jokes. I want all my stuff to be as good as this first one, or as good as what my closer is, right? And so he forces himself to do that. Now, my ego is not that strong. I'm not out there doing enough comedy to take a hit every day, to fail at the level of like, here's my strongest joke first, and everything's gonna suck after that, and to do that day after day. So I might sandwich it. I might go like, hey, here's a decent joke, here's a joke I'm trying, here's a joke that's really good, here's another joke I'm trying, here's another joke I'm trying.
Wouldn't you want to start with the one that was like really good?
The one that has,
best, but really good.
I would say the ones that I feel like the best are the ones that have trick words, like, or not trick words, but like a surprise word, like, this sentence. You ever watch that show like CSI or any of those crime shows?
I hate the formula.
Like Law and Order.
I hate those. I rather
watch
Bosch or something.
What is it?
Bosch, where it's like one season, one case.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's a better format.
It is a better format because the other stuff is like kind of mind garbage. But it has the same format. There's going to be a killer at the beginning of the episode, and by the end of the episode, you're going to figure out who did it, or they're going to get away with it. You're going to be like, "What? That's crazy. This almost never happens, right?" But most of the time, you figure out who the killer is, right? So they do like a series of interviews, and you're like, out of all the interviews, who was it, right? I think most people's minds are like that. When you tell a joke, you start off with the premise, and they're like, where are you going? And most people's mind are trying to figure out what you're going to say before you say it. And if you say what they thought you were going to say, it's not as funny. It's funny sometimes, but not as funny. Now, you can say what they were going to say and just say it in a different way, and it'll be okay. But if you take it this way, and you just completely sidestep and go a completely different route, it's way better for them. And so any of the jokes that I have that have surprise sentences where you don't see the punchline coming, then it's a better hit. So I'm trying to practice that form. And I don't want to be predictable, I want to be silly, but why would I want to talk about something that I don't care about, right? So most of the time it is something that I do care about, and a lot of the time I have to water it in a way that's like, oh, this is not for everybody, this is more facts than it is funny, and though it's interesting to me, it's not interesting or hilarious or stage worthy. So it's a lot of trimming off the fat, it's a lot of failing on stage and going, interesting but not funny, funny but not hilarious. Right. And then when you're like, hilarious but it needs work, and then once you have that, you're like, all right, how do I do that but with a different topic? And how do I do it in a way that they don't see my cadence coming? That's the other thing.
Okay.
I think repetitive cadence can be a problem.
Did you start with this strategy, or when
I think
first started comedy, did you get addicted to it?
I was. I wouldn't say I have insomnia, but I do have a hard time sleeping, so I'd always play comedy while I'm trying to sleep. And then so there's a number of comedians, people like Jim Gaffigan, Aziz Ansari, Louis C.K., Hannibal Buress, those people, you listen to their jokes, it's just a barrage of hilariousness. And falling asleep to, Pablo Francisco back in the day, fun to listen to, but once you've listened to it 1,000 times, you don't really pay attention to it. You might hear the cadence and the beats, but I would fall asleep to that. So over time, I just watched a lot of comedy. I think comedy was the first thing that was very, very consistent in my life. Most things that, play video games, but I stopped playing those, or I draw and then I stopped drawing. But comedy was like in the background at all times. And at some point, I saw one comic on TV that I was just like, I've heard a lot of back-to-back specials, and I've seen a lot of their topics overlap. Dating, this, that, right? And I go, I've heard this joke from 5 different comics, but that last guy, it was like he wasn't even trying. It was like he just put a premise out there, and that was it. He didn't have any tags. He didn't take the joke anywhere. Just premise, and he had a big enough following that people just loved it. And I thought to myself, okay, I know I'm not the funniest person in the world. I know by far all my friends are funnier than me, but I know I'm funnier than that guy. And if that guy can make a living off of it, what's stopping me? And at the time I was getting out of the Navy, so I was thinking to myself, like, I need something that can make enough money that you can make a living off of. And then one reason why I was getting out of the military was I wasn't getting the credit for the things that I was doing, but I was getting the credit for things other people were doing. And that's very frustrating. You hear people getting awards, and I'm like, I did that, she didn't do that, I did that, he didn't do that, why is he getting the award? I did all that work, And then they give me an award, and I'm like, I didn't do half the things you just gave me this award for. It's messed up, So I wanted to be rewarded for my actual work. And there's a lot of middlemen in between your work and your reward for the majority of most jobs. And I think comedy is one of those things where it's like, you rarely do you just see somebody given something they didn't deserve, whether it's an applause break, a booked gig.
Social media definitely makes
there's an illusion. It's
a wild. I think like a lot of people are still trying to
give anything 5 years. The fakes will always dissipate. You can only keep up an act for so long.
People are going to be like, okay, you have this amount of followers, but also,
what are followers if it means nothing to you, right?
Wait, are they gonna come and then be a regular customer at my club?
You know what I think?
Are they?
I think out of all the things to think about, there's a bunch of variables to think about in comedy, but I think the number one thing, whether it's comedy or not, you would think, did I give it my best? Because when you don't give it your best, it's the only thing you focus on. When you have your set and you're like, I didn't say that one word right, you're gonna think about that for a really long time, right? But when you did your best, you're like, I was crushed, I was on point, I had every beat, I actually performed at the highest level ever.
But there's like a feedback loop.
Yeah,
so it's
but
hard.
here's the thing, right? So when you do your best, and it doesn't go well, you don't feel that bad. You feel unsuccessful.
I totally understand what you're saying,
you don't feel bad.
Because the audience is giving you energy and it makes it better, it's hard to do your best when the audience isn't.
There's a difference between going, I need to adapt to this new environment. Apparently there's a variable in the crowd I wasn't prepared for. Versus, I didn't prepare enough. I didn't rehearse my lines enough. I stumbled on this word, I got distracted by the light, or I didn't time myself out. Like, you don't want the fault to be on you. You would rather be like, there's a new variable and I have a new field I gotta take on, right? Versus, I just wasn't bringing my A game. Today was my C game and that crowd ate me up. Like, if you had to choose one of the two, you're going the latter. You're going like, I don't want the crowd to see that I failed at performing. I would rather perform my best and the crowd was just different.
I mean, a few years in, like doing like puns and a show, and they didn't like it, and I'll do something else, and then I did another set of puns, and
especially when
why did I do that? I should have done dirty stuff, or
when you have a series of jokes that you know works 90% of the time. Sometimes you'll go into a crowd and they're like, we don't want material. Focus on what's happening today. Maybe something happened in the news down the street. There's a Padres game going on, There's gonna be a lot of people in that vibe of like, things just happen. They got energy, they got adrenaline going. Maybe they were, it's a weekday, especially a Monday or a Tuesday. They're gonna be getting work off of them. And then, so they're still trying to focus, but if you can get them to focus on the here and now because you're talking to them, that's great. But if you're doing cadence, like blah, 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 right? You're just doing your cadence, they're gonna tune out. They're gonna see that you're not really into it and they're not gonna be into it because they have half of their life still in cycle. A Saturday show might be a little bit different, but yeah. And then you gotta compete with whatever they're competing with, right? You got a young crowd, They got hormones going crazy. They're trying to fuck everything. They're trying to drink everything, experience everything. You're competing with that and TikTok nowadays. It's hard to compete with all that. But if you kind of reach out and you verbally touch them, you're like, I'm talking to you, and you start going off with them, and you bring them into your
write on stage?
Rarely. I would say rarely. I think if I have a good set going, and then like I've written a good set, I've done this a good amount of times, but I'm working on a few parts of it, and then I know it enough to skip parts, right? I can go, hey, I got 10 minutes, and this person in the center of this crowd would actually fit perfectly. If I start talking to this person, I can probably use some of that in the material, and then you discover a little something new. But if you don't know your lines, if you haven't done this joke that many times, you're more worried. Your eyes are going everywhere. You're looking everywhere except for the audience because you're trying to memorize. You're trying to visualize the lines that you wrote.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of interesting how a lot of comics just only practice their jokes on stage. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, and I think there's a benefit to it. I think because you got to imagine, everybody's not everybody, but every once in a while you'll see comics who only do good with material and they suck at crowd work. I mean, not even just crowd work, but just responding to the crowd, because you could ruin the mood by not responding to the crowd well, even though your jokes are written well. And then the same thing vice versa. There are people who crush the concept of just interacting with people, and then they jump into their material, and it's so weak because they rarely practice it. And it's just like, oh, when you're talking from the heart, you're good, you're quick, but that rehearse thing, like, it's very robotic. It's not you, So it just depends on what people are good at, what they excel at. Are they living in the moment? Are they well rehearsed and well structured?
Right. Yeah. So have you ever taken like a comedy class or you've done joke writing classes?
I haven't done joke writing classes, but I've done a few where you sit down with other comics and you review your jokes. I think Andrew Schultz had that show, Inside Jokes with Andrew Schultz, where it's like 4 comics sit down in the bar and go like, hey, these jokes work, these jokes don't. This splits the room. Let's break it down why. And people will give you the perspective of like, listen, your joke has this anatomy. This is how it starts. This is where you want it to head, but you're not realizing you're saying so much stuff that brings people thinking you're coming over here. And when you come over here, they don't want you to come over there. They want you to come over here. You're really setting it up to come over here. Or you don't even realize you're talking about something that is alive in the moment. And you haven't realized it, but you're talking about it like it's past tense. It's like, dude, that's happening next week, So sometimes it's stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's interesting in San Diego comedy scene right now. There's 3 joke writing,
yeah, Right Tight. Yeah,
this Right Tight's been going on forever. It's been on Sundays. I can't do that right now.
But it's fun. I say there's benefits to going to it, because even if
I'm sure they're all good. It's just 2 of them are on Sundays.
so the day's good.
And then mine is on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful for me helping or listening to everyone's feedback and trying to give feedback.
Yeah. I think feedback's good. I think realistically, especially in the beginning couple of years, I think, or maybe it's not even a couple of years, but just like hours of experience. Let's talk in that way. Like, it was supposed to be like 10,000 hours, you get really good at something. So if you're like in your first 50 or 5,000 hours, you're forming the tools, right? So it's like, the way I look at it is like, you have this box that you're creating, this machine box where you put the premise in, and then all the punchlines come out, all the structure comes out. But assembling that box is like, it's a trial and error thing. And some people give up halfway through, they just, they do
but
comedy.
But he also stop doing comedy. Have you ever put a joke aside and came back to it?
Yeah, but so the experience will give you the box, right? And then so after you have the box, you kind of don't need everyone else to put their opinions in, right? It's warranted at times. Somebody might give you a punchline that you didn't think about, or any advice might be beneficial at all points in time. There's always room for improvement, so if somebody's giving you that tool, great. But the goal is to be like, hey, when I'm on my own, when I'm traveling by myself, and I'm in a new circumstance, I'm in a new city, I'm in a new circumstance, and no one's gonna help me out, can I take what's given to me and make the jokes? I already have my pre-made jokes. There's going to be new stuff I'm going to have to adapt to. Do I have what it takes? And then if I see something new, something that I might want to make a joke out of, can I put it in the box and could the joke come out?
Right.
Because if you don't have that, then again, you could get lucky only so many times.
Sure. So have you ever done a character on stage?
Yeah.
How did you like it?
I think, you know what, I like the concept that you get to display something, like a concept to somebody else. Like, it's like painting a picture and then showing it, what's the psychological test? You're like, here's a blob.
Rorschach, right?
Yeah, Rorschach test. Where it's like, what do you see? And it's great when you're like, I'm gonna draw an outline of something. Do you see it? What do you see? And they're like, is it a bunny? And you're like, yes, it was. That's what I wanted you to see, a bunny, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're playing a character, it's like, I want you to see this. Do you see that? But sometimes you also want a different thing, and sometimes the two don't mesh.
Sure.
I was given advice once about I did an audition set for Flappers, and I didn't think I was gonna get anything out of it. Yeah. I didn't think I was going to get anything out of it, but the guy, like, afterwards, he gave me the advice. He's like, hey, this joke, you had wherewithal. You made a joke that said, I understand who I am and I understand what I'm saying. Then you made another joke like you didn't have that. Like, you have no clue who you are and how you're coming off. And then you went right back into, I have wherewithal. And that's going to throw the audience off. You can't do a long set of that. You could do that for 2 minutes. You can't do that for an hour. And that made sense to me. That was like one of the first real pieces of, like, I was like, oh shit, somebody called me out of some real shit, you know? You know when somebody calls you a name and you're like, well, I don't do that. But then when somebody says something accurate about you, you're like, oh, goddamn. you fucking know about that?
You noticed that?
Oh, okay. All right, calling me out correctly.
That's interesting. So have you ever, like, sung a comedy song on stage? Or?
No, I don't have a voice for singing. I can't carry a tune. Karaoke's not my thing. I will say.
Karaoke.
Yeah, I admire anybody who could do that. I could wiggle my body a bit. I could do a little bit of dancing. I can obviously embarrass myself in a number of ways that I'm okay with. But singing, you're just asking me to do the thing you suck the most at.
Sure. So have you done improv?
No, I don't think technically I have. I've done the comedy and improv thing, but not
Okay. Have you been in sketches or done your own sketch?
One sketch, two sketches. I think 2 sketches. I don't think I've done my own sketch.
Cool. What about merch? Have you done any merch?
I'm too lazy. I'm not there yet.
Got to get on that.
I
merch.
You gotta make
You
money.
want someone else to make money off of you?
You know what it is?
I
don't think I have anything credible enough that I want somebody repeating in like 10 years.
Well, look at this.
Yeah.
This is my favorite shirt.
You know what I will say? I overthink that concept too much. I know.
No, I don't have a joke for this. You don't
No.
have to have a joke.
Yeah, I think every year I feel like I've learned enough to see the faults in all the things that I used to do, and then so you give me like 3 years into the future, and I look back 3 years in the past, and I
just
go,
do stickers.
oh, I wish nobody would remind me of that.
Just do stickers.
Yeah. Well, that's work. That's work. I already do it.
It's literally so easy.
Yeah.
I can help you with that. But if you're not into it, that's fine. So
you got a bunch of stickers already made for. You wrote all my punchlines down. Yeah, like, listen, I was gonna sell this to you at a price, and you could flip it. Trying to hustle the hustle, okay? I respect it.
you gotta approve the proof, and then I'll push print.
Okay, yeah. You gotta write copyright.
No, look, not copyright. You keep the copyright. It's just.
Oh, you get the whole thing set up. You're like, no, open the bag.
You
I'm
keep
serious.
the copyright. You just pay for the stickers, but you have to approve the proof. You know what a proof is, right?
I believe it's a rapper.
So a proof, and what I'm talking about is, I show you the design, what it's going to look like printed, and you go, that, yes, or you go, oh, could you make it pink color? You know,
approval. You're saying approval, but the shorter version.
Yeah, it's not just me. It's in people in the know color to proof.
They say the proof is in the yogurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're lactose intolerant, and then wait, yogurt's not lactose intolerant. It doesn't have milk, right?
Yogurt definitely is. It's dairy.
It's platypus milk that doesn't go with it, right? Platypus milk, you can't get, there's no lactose intolerant there, right? I gotta look that up, but
I don't know if anyone's really milking platypuses out
they're
here.
milking everything, though.
So who's the funniest person in your life right now?
Probably my old roommate. He's zingers. He's a professional bullshitter. I think every room he walks into, he's like, "How can I get one over on you, make you believe something that's not true?" And then you call me. He's playing the game of, I'm trying to get caught. I want you to call me out on it, so you can get used to the idea that one, we're on the same team, and we're going to be bullshitting for the next however long we know each other. And so it's always fun to see him interact with people. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. What's your favorite place to do comedy right now?
My favorite. You know what? I would say Blarney's. Because it's always a mixed crowd. It's always people who kind of wander in. It's people that you bark in. It's people that actually like comedy, so they heard about it. So you get a mixed crowd in there. It's either a big crowd, a packed room of like people intently watching you, or it's 3 people. And I think it brings the perfect kind of pressure because you feel all the holes in your jokes the second you get in there, where you're just like, oh, this is a small crowd, so this joke had big energy. I have to make it more of a conversation and less of a performance, you know? And so when you don't have like punchlines and you don't have the structure, you just see it crumbling before you even get on stage. And then same thing vice versa. When you go, I'm trying out a new joke, I think it's solid. Everybody gets a joke where they're just like, I'm really excited. I feel like this is a home run. Yeah. And you work it out, you actually put time and quality into it, and then whether it's a small crowd or a big crowd, you're not nervous, you're like, this is gonna work. I know it's gonna work. And then you perform it, and it happens the exact way that you felt.
Oh, yeah.
Rarely does that happen. Yeah.
That's what we're chasing.
We're chasing the dragon. Yeah.
Exactly.
But Blarney's is a great testament to that, I think. I think some places where, whether it's Madhouse here, you can have a packed room in here, and it's great. It's like they're breathing on you, but you can have a specific crowd. Just one grouping of people.
So in the brick room? Or?
Yeah, the brick room, you can have like, hey, a college kid is trying comedy for the first night, so the brick room's packed with all of his friends, and they like only one kind of joke, But you go to Blarney's, it's like you've got, 3 middle-aged couples and 3 elderly couples, and then you got 2 foreign groups that are just like, hey, they are opposite groups. So it's like, okay, now I gotta see, does this hit more people than not, or is this translatable? Is this something that like everyone kind of gets what I'm going for? Is the picture even, worth your attention? Or, yeah, I think you get a good amount of it.
Yeah. Cool. So what's your best booking story? Either you got booked on a show, or
I don't have great booking stories. I don't get booked that much. I get booked by the same few people. I think the best.
Have you ran your own show?
Yeah.
So did you have a good booking story? Like, oh, I can't believe I got this comic.
No.
So you haven't been trying, just been trying.
Well, we only ran a couple of shows, and then we had like fallen out with me and one of the guys. So yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, but I think the universe says, hey, you need this much experience, and you ever play video games where it's like there's levels to it? Yeah, and you go like, hey, okay, level 1, you got no armor, so hit a couple of things, get a couple of experience, get used to the joystick, get used to the maneuvering, right? They're gonna do a little tutorial with you, right? Then you get to your next level, you got a little bit of armor, but now you're fighting like the new theme, where it's like, you started out in the fields, now you're in the sewers, right? And you're like, okay, this is a whole, now you're gonna fight rats in water, all right? And then it's like, now you're in the fire land, and you need fireproof armor, and all this other, right? So you get something a little bit before you go on to the next level, right? And there's like side quests that you can go back, like you can say, hey, I don't want to go forward, I want to actually go back and do the side quest and get that little amulet or whatever. It doesn't do much, but I want to bring it to the next level, right? And then by the end, when you're at like the high-end boss, there's just certain things you can't beat the boss without all the tools. You need this sword, you need that shield, you need to get quick with this button,
right?
And so I feel like comedy is kind of like that, where I'm gathering tools, I'm trying to figure out how to bring this to the stage. It's in my back pocket. Okay, I can do this, but I can't do that. I remember one of the big ones I had was at the Harp out in OB, and there was a soccer game on. So there's a soccer game going on TV. There was a comedy show going on at the same time as the soccer game.
Did they have volume on?
Yes.
Oh my god.
So that's going on the whole time, right? There's this big Irish family sitting in the front. There's like 12 people at this one table close to the stage, right? Soccer game goes off, this family is still talking, right? And I'm watching the whole show, and this family's talking throughout the whole show. And the volume on the microphone's not the best. It's enough to be present, but it's not enough to drown out the family, right? So I see the show, they're talking through the whole show. Then they have the open mic afterwards, right? And so the open mic is going, and they're still talking throughout the whole thing. And anyone who's practicing material or trying to riff with the other parts of the crowd, they can't overdo this one family. And I just remember I was the last person to go up. The host was like, hey, you don't need to just do 3 minutes. Go as long as you want, and if you go too long, I'll stop you. And so I tried to go into a joke that I was, rehearsing and trying to practice. I thought maybe if it's funny enough, I can get them to pay attention. I got 2 words into it, and I was like, oh, that's not gonna work. And I was like, they ruined everybody's night so far. There wasn't a single part of the show or the open mic that was bearable because they were just drowning it out. And so I just figured, you know what? If they're gonna ruin my night, I'll ruin their night. So I just started ripping into them and just discussing like how they've been ruining everybody's night. They're the loudest thing in this room. And then that's when I discovered, oh, it's a big old family. It's like the biggest family I've ever seen in person. The mom and dad are there, a bunch of brothers and sisters and their partners. And I started ripping into them for roughly like, I would say maybe 10 to 12 minutes, right? And slowly it goes from me just being aggressive to like remembering this is an open mic comedy show. So I'm like trying to throw some like, puns in there and some, something that brings the rest of the bar in on it. So now it's the whole bar versus them. And of the 12, I got, I think, like 9 of the family members to be quiet and to be on my side. Like they kind of understood that they were fucking up everybody's night. And then it came down to the last 3. And I just remember it was the girl holding the dog. And she's like, all right, we'll be quiet. Now tell us a joke. You want us to be quiet? Tell us a joke. And I made the mistake of trying to tell a joke.
Oh my god.
And so I think like a metaphorical representation of what it was. It's like, you ever see the balance beam gymnastics where they do all the flips and then they have to do the flip at the end and stick the landing? It's like you watch me do this workup routine and like, oh, he's actually getting it. He's warming up. And then just ate shit like right on my neck, landed right on my neck at the very end. And I was like, oh, never will I ever do that again.
They're like, exactly.
Yeah. But the tool that I needed from that was, hey, if you're going to do this kind of energy thing, there's just certain worlds that you can live in. You can't go back to premises unless your joke is about yelling at people. Yeah.
Like, no, you tell a joke.
Hey, that's 10 times better than what I should have said. You are the joke, anything would have been better than what I did, which was, so mermaids are interesting. Yeah, but I needed to know that, right? Because if I didn't know that now, best believe moving forward, dealing with other kinds of hecklers, I couldn't handle the bigger hecklers, the ones that are more complex, And then now, so I picked.
They're trying to be helpful, but they're saying they're, all over the place, laughing at the wrong time, and it's like, oh my god.
And I think I don't like. Before my set, I don't like listening to the entirety of somebody else's set unless they're like a really good comic that I find to be personally funny. But even then, if I'm going up after them, I'd still kind of stay away from it because I kind of want to be in my own aura. But I will see like maybe a minute to 2 before my set. I'll watch the crowd, I'll watch how they're interacting with the comic, I'll see who's talking, who's not interested, and I'll see why they're not interested or what they are interested in. And I remember one time at the Madhouse, there was a comic on stage doing their thing. I was listening and paying attention. There's like one group in the back. There was like a military crowd. It was like 5 dudes and 1 chick, and the chick had like the lesbian haircut. She looked like Macklemore, right? And I went on stage and I'm doing my stuff, and you can hear the volume. You can tell that like half the crowd crowd's laughing, not everybody, and I hear some people in the back laughing, but not everybody. You know the full room laugh when you get it, right?
Right.
And I go, okay, so I'm missing some people. And then I forgot what the line was about, but the joke was about tall women and short women. And I said something, and I know the only person who was going to say something was Macklemore. And she said something, and I was like, that's right, Macklemore. And because I had been paying attention and figuring out who was going to say what when, I already had the zinger lined up. And then the zinger was what brought the whole crowd back into it. So I made the one person who wasn't paying attention pay attention. I made all the other people go, okay, this is interactive. If I try something, he is going to listen. Now, does that mean the rest of my material was great? No, but it definitely brought a higher mood than I was going to end off of.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So you pick up those things along the way, you know.
Sure. What about your favorite fan interaction? Either you are a fan of a comic or a fan of yours.
Favorite fan of mine. Oh, okay. I'll say this. Favorite fan for me interacting with a comedian. This is like my first couple of months doing comedy. I got to see Brian Regan do a pop-in spot, and I'm the kind of person where I don't want to just fanboy out and just like take a picture with somebody. I think that's fine and fair for everyone has their own journey and things, but for me personally, I like to have like a genuine interaction and be like, I remember that night, and this is what they said, and this is what the vibe was. You could take a picture with anybody. They could be a douche to you 2 seconds later, right? It wouldn't live up to what that picture is, right? But if you had a good experience with that person, then take a picture. You know, that's my theory. So I saw Brian Regan do a pop-in spot, and I got to see him work out material. Didn't go well for the first portion, but later on, I went to the bar before he was done his set, and then so he was with like the you know, when you're traveling, you find out the comics that are going to show you, here's the other spot, we're going to hop on that spot, and we're going to hop on this spot. So he was with that crew, and he was going to go buy them some drinks, and I was sitting at the bar, and he asked like, hey, do you want a drink? And I was like, no, I'm good. And I was like, hey, but can I ask you a question? And I was like, hey, is it scary when you're trying new material like that? And he's like, oh, every time. I'm terrified. And I'm like, this guy just sold out MGM. Like, this guy is massive. I've fallen asleep listening to this guy, you know? Like, in a good way. Not
no, yeah, call back.
Yeah. But, like, I'm going, like, dang, he still gets nervous. And he's been doing it for over, like, a few decades, you know? Yeah. And hearing that, it just made me, like, it opened up my eyes. And then he's like, I can tell you, do you do comedy? And I was like, yeah. And then he asked me, like, well, like, what's one of your jokes? And it was a lame joke that I had. It was like a deaf guy doing an impression of a black guy doing an impression of some other guy, you know. And his response was, well, you know what? I look forward to working with you in the future. And in hindsight, he probably says it to everybody, which is a good thing to say. It's good for the spirit. Yeah. In that moment, I was like, dog, you don't know. That's a dream now, you know. But it's like a real moment interacting with somebody, hearing a real thing from them, and you got to display a little bit of your real thing, and it's like, whatever the artificial stuff outside of it or with it is, it's like, that felt real. And that was a good feeling. And
yeah, he wasn't going to say.
Yeah. I didn't hang out with them all night or anything.
He wasn't going to go, oh, you want to come on tour with me?
Yeah.
That was never going to happen.
Such a minor thing. People have like, oh, I got to hang out with my favorite, we did drugs, we went over, we got into a fight with some random, you know, they probably have like way cooler stories, for sure. But as a fan, like the fanboy feeling, it's like, I got the,
great story.
Yeah. And then I think I slowly have gotten some people who watch comedy on a regular, and I think the top two like fan interactions were one at the Madhouse. I saw one person who I did 10 minutes here the night before, and then so it was the second night. I think it was like Friday into Saturday, and then on Saturday night I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this same 10 minutes, and then I saw somebody who was in the crowd the night before, and I was like, oh, I felt weird for the first time, like, oh, you're gonna know I'm a fraud, Doug. So I squished in like 3 different jokes. I had the same 10 minutes, but just replaced, 3 jokes in the center. And so I was like, I'm watching everyone else here for the first time, and I'm watching the person with a high expectation, like, meet that expectation. And then afterwards, he's like, I saw your set yesterday, you did it even better. And he had, like, he paid attention to it the way I thought he was paying attention to it, he reacted to it.
So you liked the second set better?
Yeah. And
That's interesting.
and I've had in other places where somebody's like, oh, I've seen you here and I've seen you here and I like that you're working on new stuff. And that's like, oh, you didn't even know you were being watched. Like, because you fail so many different places. You're just like, man, I've had random people come up to, like, one time I was in the gym and I had my headphones on. This guy was like, and I took my headphones off and he's like, do you do comedy? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. And he just walked off. I was just like, did you like it? Did you hate it? I was like, oh, I'll judge.
How is that not your favorite fan interaction? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He just was making sure
I was just more
that
secure.
his pattern recognition is working correctly.
Yeah. Oh, it was another good one. These are like these are like top 5 moments, I guess.
No. Favorite is just a
Yeah.
starter. It's just
things that stand out for
I'm not gonna
things that
say
make you
what are your
smile.
top 5 fan interactions.
Yeah.
What?
One time I got off stage and during the show, there's one lady who was talking shit to these other people. And I had to like kind of stop because I was like, the audience member can't shut up the other side of the audience. I gotta kind of mediate. But it was like I was doing the headlining set for it, so I mean it was like a 20-minute headlining set, so not a real headlining set, but you get it, right?
Well, headlining for that
For
show.
for that show, yeah. And
All
afterwards, the crowd member who was like making sure that the other people stopped talking, which she did help bring the show back, right? I could tell she was like a fan of comedy. She wanted to be there, and I was like, thanks for that. And she's like, yeah, no problem. And then she started saying, she said something that I did right and wrong. I was like, oh, okay, well, what else did I do wrong? And she's like, well, now that you mention it, she pulls out her phone. And she had been writing notes the whole time. And she had 5 bullets, like legit, like how you got your pad. She had 5 bullets of what I did right and wrong, or wrong. It was all wrong. And she was like, first off, you started off like this, and this is no, you shouldn't do it like that. You should always do it like. And then so
just a comedy.
yes, and I asked her, I was like, do you do comedy? And she's like, no, but that doesn't mean I didn't pick up on this. I was like, okay, she's a real comedy fan,
She should come. Yeah, I want comedy fans too to come to the
and if you
comedy
can impress the
writing
comedy
workshop.
fan, if you can impress the real comedy fan, the people who don't do comedy but love comedy, it's like that's the best, like that's who you really do it for. I think when you get so many people coming into comedy, especially like if you're barking people into shows, you're not meant to get everybody. Not everyone is meant to be sitting in that room. So many people ruin it because they're not in the mood for comedy.
What about this? This is what I've been thinking of.
But I will say, before we lose this point, that's the fan you want to bring in every time. If you could bark the person in, or I mean, they were probably going to come here anyways, but that's who you want. The people who are like, listen, if you kind of do good, I get what you were going for. I like that. And if you did bad, you didn't do as bad as you thought, because I saw what you were going for. If you did great, they'll humble you, like, hey, you did good, but like, let's be real, you kind of fucked up a bit, right?
Yeah.
They can call you on your bullshit, they can bring so when they really enjoy the show, it's like, you're like, that's who you're really doing it for. Those are going to be real fans in the future, and those are the people, like, if you ever get to a high level where people repeat paying to, like, hey, I saw you this year, and I saw you that year, and I saw you this year, they're watching your career, they're watching you evolve over time, and they're impressed with it. It's like, dog, that's like a 8th dad who needs dad's approval when you've got a comedy fan,
Right.
So yeah.
So what do you think about this? I've been, my comedy journey is like I've been thinking about it is that I'm trying to broaden my comedy as much as I can artistically, and not feel compromised artistically, right? And be doing it long enough that the people that like me will come to the show on purpose.
I think everyone should get to that point. It should be the goal.
That's the goal, right? Yeah, I'm not saying I'm there.
No. But I get what you're saying. Here's kind of what I'm discovering now. This is like, you know your highest level of thinking. You're like, listen, I'm here. This is what I learned today. What do you think about this? Because whatever from here, I'm evolving. Help me evolve. When you're in a room full of like 10, 15 people, and you have like a very kind of like, it's your kind of joke, the joke that speaks to you, you're like, listen, I don't get a lot of laughs with this joke, but I love telling this joke. And when I tell this joke, there's always like 2 or 3 people who really like that joke the same way I do. I think that's what it is about, because in a room full of 15 people, if 3 people like it that much, and every time in a room full of 3 people like it, it's like, in your head, you're gonna risk it. You're gonna be like, listen, I know I'm not gonna get everybody. I've been getting everybody all night, but I know this joke is not for everybody. But that's, if you're thinking proportion-wise, that's how you build your audience. Because if they like it so much even when no one else likes it, and that's the one that speaks to you, and it speaks to them the same way, when you get in front of, the 1,000 group where you put your stuff on the internet, you're gonna collect all the people like that, right? So just think about the 1%, right? Imagine if somebody said, dude, your comedy is so bad, 99% of the world hates it. Dude, how big is the world? 1%? How many hundreds of thousands will it take to be a career comic?
1% of
there's billions
watching
of people.
comedy.
Even if you said,
oh yeah, if it's in the world,
if you said,
not
1% of the
people
world
watching comedy. There's
Yeah.
only 1% of
Yeah.
people watching
1%
comedy,
of the world.
and versus the world. That's a
Yeah.
big difference. That's
here's my ratio, right? I think music speaks to the highest level of all humanity. I think nothing is bigger than music. I think not presidents, not political figures, not religious figures, not Jesus. Right? Jesus got less than 50% of the world, right?
But did Jesus write his own songs?
He should have. That would have actually boosted his stats, but he didn't listen to his manager,
That's the thing, people.
But if you can, so music is one of those things where I think at its height, if you're like one of the world's most successful bands, I think like 50% to maybe 75% of the world will fuck with you, right? And that's the highest ratio you're gonna get. Like even a sports team, even if you're like the best, quarterback or whatever, there's only so many people who are gonna like you, and there's gonna be so many people who hate you, right? So that ratio of who likes you to who hates you, imagine scoring a touchdown at the highest level, right? How much right? If somebody were like, that's only like 0.0001% of the world. You're like, who gives a fuck? That's a stadium, right? So if you're thinking about your comedy career, it's the same thing where it's like, if somebody were to tell you only 1% of the world, or less than 1% of the world fucks with you, it's like, yeah, but it's still enough to sell out arenas everywhere I go. I'm not trying to do it for everyone. I'm trying to do it for the arena-worthy amount of people who like my stuff. So I think of it that way, when you stay true to your art, and you craft your voice, and you craft your talent, and your determination, and you get all those things together, I think you're gonna be the best version of yourself. And it does, a lot of people like to look at like Joe Rogan's career, right? But like, even Joe Rogan's not loved comically as much as, the world's top comics, but just he has the biggest platform. So people would think, oh, he must be the world's best comic. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's like, but he's got a lot of people who fuck with him in other stuff too. So he's got a whole other avenue and other arenas that he does well in. But that's not here and there. What I'm saying is, you don't have to be the world's best comic to be such an incredible feat that if you can even travel and get a fan base, you could be like a B-list comedian.
Right.
Somebody who went up and then somebody who's
one of the
going
things
down.
we find in this podcast and talking to people is that the funniest people aren't even comedians. That's what
very
prompted that question. Who's the funniest person in your life?
Yeah.
Because
I
so many times, like you, they didn't say another comedian.
Yeah. When I think about it, like most comics, they're only funny in specific circumstances. I mean, the best comics are going to be great in every scenario, or most scenarios, but most comics are only good in very specific scenarios. And I think the funniest people, when you see somebody who's very charismatic, I think I've met one person who so charismatic, no matter what room he entered, just the gift of the gab all the way through.
Right.
And when I see people like that, I go, that's a finite tool. Like, he might not get on stage, but that guy, no matter what room he's in, he's gonna make you laugh. He's gonna make you go, keep going, please, keep the. Oh, have you met this person? Tell them what you like. That effect on people is like, it's rare, it's super rare, super rare. More, I think most people want to be entertained and influenced, and more importantly, they want something that challenges them to grow at a level that they're comfortable with.
Right.
And so when you get somebody who like breaks down your trust barriers and pulls you into unknown territory, but helps you swim it, it just gives you confidence that you never had. And to see him do that with so many people, including, like, I remember the CEO of the boat that I was on, he could smooch that guy. And I was just like, oh, that's impressive.
It's cool. So I ask this of every comic. I don't always know the answer to, but when did we meet?
We met, I'm not gonna lie, anything past a week ago is a blur. month ago, hella blur. I have like highlights of things, even in my own family life.
Best answer yet.
Yeah. I would say, let's see, Met. Probably.
There's no right answer because I don't know.
I'm trying to think of our first interactions, and I want to say it was probably maybe 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
And when did you start comedy?
This was 2015-ish, the end of there, I think.
That's when you started?
I know it's been 10 years. October. It was October.
And where did you start comedy at?
Up in Washington State. The first place I ever did comedy was the Tacoma Comedy Club.
Okay, and then when did you move to the San Diego area?
I think 2000, right at the beginning of 2017. Yeah. I think I did like maybe 3 or 4 sets beforehand. 4, maybe 15 sets beforehand. Only a handful of sets. Enough to build confidence, because I was still very delusional. And then I came down here with all that confidence, and you're starting from scratch because nobody knows you.
Sure.
And
So what are your goals in comedy right now?
the goal in comedy is to, I think, to get dedication back. I think I have a good amount of like, I have a good portion of the box filled where it's like I can put most premises in and it comes out. It's not perfect yet. It's not the thing I want it to be that I know it can be yet. Let's put it that way. But it's the consistency for me right now, where I'm just like, all right, you gotta stop playing video games, get back out there. You gotta stop letting TikTok.
So what games are you playing right now?
Fortnite. So fun. It's got enough of the variables I can play with.
Is that even a game?
It is a game. It's a shoot 'em up. You run around, you shoot people.
I mean, I know it's like the most popular game.
Yeah. I remember when somebody showed it to me at first, I was like, oh, I'm not your age, I'm not in college, I'm not playing games like that.
So what got you into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't remember the first time I played it. I can't remember why I downloaded it, but it was one, it was free, so that was the first, like, hey, it's a free game, try it out. But apart from that, no, I can't really remember what got me into it initially. But I do remember playing it, going, oh, it is faster paced than it looks. Like if you're watching it, it kind of looks like a kid's game. But once you play it, you realize, oh, there's characters for everybody. Like if you like Star Wars, you can play Star Wars. If you like Pokemon, there's Pokemon. If you like, none of that stuff, you could still find characters that kind of. It's great for one. It's great because women like to play it too, where they can play all the girly characters and the emojis that you can do, the emotes, dances and stuff. But then also the themes change, so there's a constant variable. It's not the same game.
So you're interacting with women on Fortnite?
No, me and my girlfriend play. So yeah, so we'll play like in teams. Sometimes we play with her niece. Sometimes we play with her brothers. Yeah, it's fun. I feel like a lot of people, like if you play like Call of Duty, you might feel like you're better than it. You're like, I play Call of Duty. This is like a real war game, and this is like a kid's game. But then it's
right
the
now
same.
Right now I'm playing like this rogue puzzle game. It's so good.
It
It's called
activates the good part.
Blueprints.
Yeah.
And it's so good that there's a save bug on PS5.
Mm-hmm.
And it was already quote unquote finished the game, but there's stuff past the credits.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the end game. Now where the real mystery starts.
Yeah.
And the save bug, I can't progress. So I've started over on Xbox.
So
that's
really
how good.
Perfect it, yeah.
That's how good the game is. I'm like, oh, why don't they fix it on PS5? The save bug, and give it, because I kept banging my head against the save bug, going, oh, I'm having fun playing. It doesn't matter if my progress is getting canceled out. And then it was like after a couple times, I'm like, wait a minute, I am getting annoyed. My progress is getting knocked down.
Yeah.
So now I'm over on Xbox.
I will say this: if word of advice for any of the couples out there, I would say if you really want to test one, your ability to communicate, and two, your compatibility, there's this game called I think it's Overcooked.
Yes.
Yeah. and you got to work as a team to get the recipe out to the customers in the order and the way it's presented. And so it affects your communication skills, where you're like, everyone's gonna yell at each other, but if you're good at communicating, or at least understanding your partner, that's how you're gonna figure it out. Like your frustration levels, like if you can stay in the game, because you're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna be this close to getting in and be off by like 1 second or by one order or something like that. And if you can communicate with each other and be patient enough to get to the next level, me and my girl, we went through the game where we wanted to max out. You can get 3 stars, you can get 2 stars, you can get 1 star. You need 2 stars to pass, but we wanted to max out with 3 stars. We want perfection on each one.
Nice. Okay.
So we constantly played it. And at first, I didn't want to play the game. I was like, this is just a game that she got me to play so she can be allowed to yell at me. I don't like this. But slowly, I still had that itch in the back of my brain that says, this is doable. Like, you were this close to get, like, if you just did this, you could, it's just like jokes, where you're like, if I just tweak this, you know, it's the same bug.
That's great. That makes me happy. That makes me, because like Fortnite, it's like, it's almost like a reason to hang out.
Yeah.
More than a game.
I agree.
Right? And then Overcooked, it's like, it's an actual game that you can get good at, and it's
proficiency.
It's and it's a good,
bonding
thing.
You
so that's
have the same pressure. You're under the same. It's a small traumatic trauma bond that you get to enjoy, because it's like, it sucks. It's you versus the game.
Oh, we were addicted to that Overcooked.
Yeah, it's such a. I'm really a person. I like to play the games where I know I beat somebody. Most of the games I play are like player versus player, and online. Rarely will I play like we're a team working against the computer, or a team versus another team, something like that. But yeah, and rarely will I ever play like a one person. Like, you got to get through the levels and stuff.
Right. What about what if you play this game I'm playing called Blueprints? Where
I barely have. I gotta put Fortnite down, dog. I gotta get all my drugs out of the system. You know, all these games.
I don't want. This is a joke. It's and the competitive thing is, can you solve it without looking anything up?
Oh, I don't have the smarts for it. I'm not a bright guy.
Well, at least we learned something about it.
Yeah. I don't think that was a mystery.
So, what is your earliest memory?
Earliest memory. Being by a river and putting my hand underneath a rock to find the shrimps that were there. I think it was one of those. So my dad was in the Navy, and so the military did this thing like, hey, your family's out at sea. All the families get together. They have a big old party. A lot of people film and stuff like that, and they send all that stuff out to the families on that boat. And so my family was out there, we were having fun, and then the kids were all playing, and I went by the water side, and there's like this little stream, and I just remember chasing shrimp. Yeah, I think I was like 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 or 3, something like that.
There's just shrimp in the water?
I don't know if they're called shrimps, maybe they're called like crawdads or something like that. There's probably like a dozen different names, but you know, those little things with the tails that go like that. Yeah.
Alright, that's cool.
What about you? What was one of your earliest memories?
Nope, not gonna do it.
No, you're the rage comes back.
No, it's just, I don't want to keep
Yeah, you probably already said that one a number of times.
So what's the worst thing about comedy right now?
Right now?
Or tomorrow? Can you predict the future?
I think, okay, this is what I think is the worst thing. This is my opinion about what I said. It's the one thing I don't like. And it's not about necessarily comedy, but
I want you to tell other people's opinions.
Yes. That I don't like other people's opinions.
Okay.
This is the one thing. I think
I thought it was a joke. I didn't realize.
No. Okay. In life, I like to be very honest with people, as honest as I can be. You can't fully be honest in most scenarios, but honest as much as you can be. And I like to be honest even when it's like taking the ramifications of a bad action I took, because I want people to build up the credibility with me to say, hey, he's going to do bad things and he's going to do good things. Give him the credit for the good things and give him the credit for the bad things. Like, give him the appropriate response, right? Don't mix the two, don't conflate anything, don't give him any extras, just make it accurate, right? I don't like when people don't give people their flowers when they're supposed to have them. Like, if somebody's good at something, but they also did something bad, say those things. They are bad because of this, they were good because of this. I hate when people say, this person was never good at this because they did a bad thing. Because these people are just like secret haters that just lurk around trying to latch on to the newest thing to hate on, and so they get praise and attention for hating on something that everyone's actively hating on. Like Bill Cosby, all right? You could say he did all the bad things. That is fair. He's supposed to get ripped apart for all the bad things.
Right, but it's not like the
but
bad
don't say
things.
He wasn't influential. Don't say he didn't.
It's not like the
somebody.
bad things
Yeah.
were making him more like getting ahead in comedy and acting.
I hated the Louis
It was
CK
like
stuff.
more like it was more like because he was in he had success, he was able to get away with the bad things he was doing.
It's
You know what I mean? Like,
so,
I mean,
so
I
to
don't-
water it down, I hate when people make it a one-dimensional thing. You're either this or you're that. You're either the bad guy or you made the good music, and it's like,
Right.
no, they did both. Why
Well,
can't you say they did both?
I think as a society, we're really trying to figure this whole thing out. Where, because when you bring out to people, okay, well, then you like this, you like this old book. It's like, well, do you know
Do you know
how
what they actually acted like in
Yeah,
real life? And
exactly.
it's like, no, but now that I know that, that's not gonna take away how I felt when I read the book the first time, or why I liked the book in the first place,
But I'm saying, if you say that to the people that are holding everybody to this high standard nowadays, they don't want to talk about that. They don't have an answer for that.
They don't have, they're not really good at context. They're not really good at compartmentalizing how they feel about something now and how they felt then and how they're going to feel in the future. They just want to lump it up like this is the only way to feel, and it's because they're not really good at processing all the other stuff. And again, it's very much like they just say it's either good or bad because it's the simplistic version of it. It's easier to push the thing away. It's like a friend who did something questionable, not the world's worst thing, not something you should excommunicate them, but the rest of the friend group does not want that person around. You're like, listen, they deserve some lashings. They deserve some verbal lashings.
Right.
Well,
I guess the interesting thing is if you if somebody cuts you off in traffic and you're like you're yelling at them and you're like, but you don't know what's going on in there. They maybe just found out they have cancer.
I will say
whatever.
this: some
Right.
things aren't redeemable, right? In the sense of like, if somebody does something so bad, you don't get an apology. Like, you did the bad thing, and we got to remove you from our circles. That's always warranted when it's warranted. But I think people conflate the concept of like, if they did something bad, it's immediately the world's worst thing. Especially if it's the world's worst thing for somebody who's super sensitive, like too sensitive for the regular world. I work with my hands. I've worked the collar jobs I've been in the military, so it's like, I've been around a number of people who make a number of jokes, and it's like, they do it to bond, but I've also met malicious people in all those circles, of all kinds.
Yeah,
And
it was
so-
interesting for me,
Yeah.
like growing up, and I'm going to be 54 this year, and this toxic masculinity. Like, I wish that we were having the conversations. I was trying to have conversations about it when I was growing up because I was getting all kinds of bad advice about, like, if I would have done the things that they would say, yeah, maybe I would get women, but I wouldn't feel good about myself.
Yeah, that is.
I was practicing
It's
more
good
like
morality.
feminism. I'm like, that woman's a person. Like, you want me to treat them
It
like
is my
dirt?
favorite thing about today's society, though, like TikTok and everything, is because so many people are having the conversation, and now you get to watch other people have the conversation, and so you can take all the fat off of their conversation, take all the highlight reels, and then come to a new conversation with somebody else who's also taking the fat of the other side of the argument, and then they can have a more finite conversation, and then so we get to this point.
Right, yeah. Like, society has a problem with dealing with complexity.
Yeah.
What as far as like, the genders and sex and classes, there's like a lot of race, all these things.
Yeah.
But, if you took any baby and you had them grow up in a different society, like they're gonna have those beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, and the world is very complex, and everybody just needs to like figure out, you know,
I think we're getting to go through the thing, and then we get to see what the public opinion is, and then we get to also live past that moment now and see how everyone else is interacting with it, and then we get to evaluate that, and then we get to do the same thing, push over. We move past that with the evaluation, and so.
But the problem with society is there's a lot of people that just want easy, quick answers, and they don't want to grow and learn.
In my opinion,
they just keep rehashing the same things.
There are two kinds of people, or at least maybe not two kinds. This would be simplifying it too much, but I think there are productive people and not productive people, right? There are people,
okay, Remii, I'm just cut you off because those people. There's different types of production.
No, hold on.
Right?
Let me explain what I mean by productive, and then
so
you can add the critique on it. When I mean productive, I mean like, okay, this is a good example. This will be the best example I could kind of give pertaining to comedy, right? Say somebody is a comedian or something, and they do something egregious, but it's not something that you would like. Okay, there's egregious like, oh, somebody should put a bullet in your head. Like you did something equal value. Hear me out. Let me get it all out first, right? So like, say a comic shoots somebody in the head, right? And you're like, oh, he killed somebody, so we should probably kill him in return, right? That would be like an appropriate eye for an eye kind of scenario, right? But say he didn't shoot somebody. Say he took a baseball bat and broke somebody's ankle, right? Not the same offense, right? One of them, you would say, listen, if we're not putting a bullet in your head because you put a bullet in somebody else's head, you should at least be incarcerated, right? You should be in jail for the rest of your life. You killed somebody, right? But if you broke somebody's ankle, maybe you should do like however much time that is, like 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is, right? Depending on the act, right? If they're in jail for 10 to 15 years, what happens when they get out, right? Say they are reformed. What's the best case scenario with somebody who did something so egregious, like breaking somebody else's ankle on purpose, but they've changed. They've changed. Now they are for you, like say you run into this person and you're like, I've heard things about you, and they demonstrate with their actions, I'm not that person anymore, and if you give me the opportunity, I will be as much of a benefit to not only your life, but the people around me. That's all I do now, is I try to help people. If you have that recourse, there's too many people who don't want to see it. They're like, you broke somebody's ankle, you should be in the ground. And it's like, well, you're not productive. You're not thinking about when that person gets out, and you're not thinking about all the benefits they can do. And there is a line, don't get me wrong, there is a line between, hey, you killed somebody and you can't take that back, and then there's breaking the ankle.
Well, there's a lot of things, like there's, in politics they say, like, there's a term like flip-flopper and stuff. It's like, well, don't you want someone in office that changes their mind based off of new information, you know?
Yeah.
So the problem is, in my opinion, is that the people that are in power, like, are using all these manipulation tools against everybody else, which is, you know, the people in power are very like small.
Manipulation is so addicting, as you see on any level.
And they're letting everybody between, you know, race and different political parties and all these things, and they're like letting people fight and like just making it to where the rich are getting richer and there's less of the rich, you know, like.
Yeah, I think the level of politics that we can all get into are going to be like, dude, I listen to nothing but politics right now. Like, that's garbage in my mind. It's reality at this point. It's less politics. It's more reality than it's politics. But
well, it's not even like.
I would say this.
It's not even politics.
No. Politics aside, let's put politics and everything politics related to the side, because like
what I just said isn't actually. That's the funny thing, is what I just said isn't actually politics. It's just you look at the actual facts.
Yeah, because if somebody looks at the time,
and it's data, right?
Yeah,
Remii, like the data, there's data doesn't lie.
That's true. Here's an interesting concept to think about, right? There's somebody right now who lives on an island that we don't know about. We just pass by it every time, right? And they're living their life. They're not affected by, you know, I mean, maybe they might be like the wind is slightly different now.
There's very little indigenous.
Yeah, I get it. But bear with me on the concept, right?
Okay.
Somebody gets to live their life right now in a way that's unaffected by all the things that we're creating and we're interacting with and we're going through.
But
and
they
one
are
day,
affected.
all of this is going to change.
They are affected because they live on Earth, and
that is true.
the
That is
oceans
true
are right.
to a certain degree. But their bliss, their mind, like what they worry about, and it's not because there's no opportunity to care about more. It's just like they found a finite thing. And I think with everyone's short life on Earth, I think if given the opportunity to have that level of bliss, I think that would be the ultimate thing. To have something where your variable of happiness, how often your happiness meter goes up and how often your depression meter goes down, right? If you can keep an average in the higher sector, do that, right? And that goes to either simplicity or complexity. Maybe you want to create more, maybe you want to perform more, maybe you want to help more, maybe
Sure.
you
But-
want to be more present.
Okay,
just
so
witness
back
more.
to the people, you said something that didn't make any sense to me.
Oh,
You said
politics.
about these people aren't being productive.
Oh, I think
So
the
in
reverse,
my,
yeah.
so let me jump on that.
Yeah.
And there are people that are very productive in, like a big CEO that's doing a good job, but he's doing evil things at the same time. He is being very productive, but he's not being productive in the sense of helping to make the world a better place, because you can have both.
I would say for a scenario like that, I think more of the thing that I would focus on in that scenario is like, well, then we just need people to be proactive and rally against that person in the most appropriate and efficient manner possible. But
it's not just the person, right? Because it's everybody will explain the system. So my theories are this: we have to, as a society, use the data and decide how rich does everybody need to be, right?
Yeah.
But the reason is there's people that have they're not a lot, because recorded history of this is only so long, and certain like psychological studies are hard to reproduce, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the empirical data, that there's people that have said, if I ever get rich, I will do good. And then they do get rich, and they do good for a little bit. They get extra rich, and they turn
Let me
bad.
let me bring something to you.
And there's not politics.
I'll probably agree with
there's
you on
data.
that.
You
I'll
just
probably
can
agree
look
with you
at
on
it.
that. But let's focus outside of the rich for a second, right? Have you ever heard the concept, if I had a genie, I would wish for everyone to have all the money that they could have and all the food and should have their life perfect, right? Let's say right now, let's just say right now, I have a genie and I say, I want everyone to have $1 million, equivalent or higher, right? Equivalent or higher, just all their needs
Yeah,
are
but
met.
that would make money.
It would kind of make money obsolete, right? Or let's just say this. I wish everyone had the exact same amount of money, right? Again, very similar thing, because it creates this.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me give the example of why I'm bringing this up, right? Immediately, I could wish for it right now. 2 minutes from now, there's gonna be a guy who's like, listen, I've got one, but I want that one. I'm a little greedy.
Right, yeah.
I'll gamble it. I bet yours that I can take his or something like that. And within less than a week, we would be so far chaotically. You wouldn't know I ever wish for all of us to be on the same plane.
Yeah, you're
We could do this.
You're
I wish-
saying exactly what I was going to say. Is
Yeah.
if we took everybody and gave them each amount of
No,
money,
but hear me
what
out,
would
hear me out,
happen
hear me out.
is over time. I'm saying the same thing that you're saying.
But there's
over
more to the
time,
story. There is more to
it
the
would-
story.
It would go back.
What you're missing on this concept of the rich is that so many people.
But it's not about the
It's
rich,
not about the rich.
system.
I no. It's not even about the system. It's about the mindset of an individual, and that's what people don't account for. Here's let me put another example.
Because we can decide how we want to be.
I hear you. Well, let me put a better example to enhance my concept, right? I read this book. It was a comic. It was about zombies, and the author wasn't really good at writing separate characters because he always spoke in his voice, right? So it would be like a black woman walks up and she's like, "Hey man, hey dude, why do you do all that?" Right? And then like a little boy who's from the countryside would come like, "Yeah man, why are you all like that?" Right? Like he would speak in the same tone for every character. He's so one-dimensional. He couldn't think somebody else might have an accent and not use those words. Somebody might be higher intelligence, somebody might be more educated, somebody might be less educated, somebody might be more chill and relaxed. Like he didn't put any thought into it, so it just sounded like one guy talking through so many different bodies. It was weird, right? I like the comic though, right? what you want. In most movies, what makes it not good or believable is when it's very binary. It's one or the other. Either there was a group for it and there was a group against it. And it's like, well, what about the group who didn't care about any of it? Or what about the group who was actually hating for separate reasons? Or there's so many other people with different mindsets.
Right.
That
goes back to people only wanting simple solutions. They don't want to think.
But it's not even just simple solutions. It's when you break all of those. You can study each individual and go, what made you do what you did? And it could be like, oh, this one was motivated by family. This one was motivated by revenge. This one was motivated by revenge, but realized there's a new path in life and only wants peace, but only wants peace with oneself. There's so many different ways to go about it. Once you discover all the different variables, right, you're going to recognize you can't control them all. Even if you can get all of them on the same page over here, you're not going to get this. It's not about control, but it is about outcome. And rich is one thing, but power is the majority. And power in that dynamic, there's just people who are always going to live there. There's always going to be the type who wants to take over. There's always going to be the self-destructive. There's always going to be the let's progress society to the stars.
But Remii, I get all what you're saying, but yes or no, could we as a society decide, like say that we decide that, there's unemployment is going to go through the roof because of AI and all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Say we come up with a plan and have, say, universal basic income, right? Let me finish.
I'll let you finish.
So, we decide what is the richest, but we want people to also try, right, for innovation and stuff. So we decide as a society, the richest person can only be X amount.
It wouldn't solve your problem, even if you did it well. Even
listen,
if we all agreed on in society, you can only make this much money. Yeah.
You only can be X amount richer, and then you start getting taxed crazy against like the average person.
Okay.
You know what that would solve is right now
it would solve a lot of problems, but
riches are getting richer and more powerful, and it would take a revolution to break it up. I'm trying to avoid because revolutions have happened, right? I'm not talking about the American Revolution or whatever. Like, if this keeps going, like think about it. When the resources are going down, all these people, there's more people that are in power. People really have power.
This is the only way that we could solve this, right? The only way. This is unrealistic now, but it might be realistic in the future. This is the only way. There's only one way. The only one way is if you had a machine, right? Okay, you know the concept of reincarnation, right? Are you that like
concept?
Yeah, where it's like, hey, I live this life, right? Like, let's say I was in a war and I fought against that enemy, and I get reincarnated. Now I am reincarnated on the other side of that exact same war. So during this fight, I see myself, my past self. And now I know what it's like to be on the other side.
Right, exactly. That's why you play video games, you put in your other shoes.
Let me get through it all, right? If you could live through every single shoe that ever was, every person, every dynamic, whether it's the caveman, to you were literally Hitler, to you were literally the rebellion against it, like you were everything throughout time, everything. Then you could fully feel empathetic on the level that it takes to say, well, that's my alarm. I gotta go take a shit. But you would then be empathetic enough. You would wake up, and the other person would wake up at the same exact time, going, "We all know. We are hive mind now because we all have experienced every level of everything. We felt the loss. We felt taking the loss from somebody. We felt carrying the burden. We felt giving the burden. We felt being the dictator. We felt being the slave. We felt it all." Only then could we all appreciate every aspect of each other. But until then, if anything less than that, it will always be a race of 100 people. There's always going to be a number one. There's always going to be the dead last. And there's always going to be the people in between. And those are three sections that will never understand each other. There's a guy who's 23rd and he's pretty similar to 25th, but he's not dead last and he's not dead front. And because that race of 100 people, that grouping, it's just, you're never gonna see eye to eye and you're gonna have different motivations. So the person who was last might be vengeful.
Yeah, but you're still simplifying it too much because
It is simplifying it too
there's
much.
There's always but doesn't always have to be. If we have a healthy society, we don't have to. We can notice people that are having problems and just want the simple solution. That they just want to believe the Earth is flat, and no matter what you say to them, you're not going to convince them. And
You know how you convince the flat earthers? You take them on a field trip to outer space and you let them watch the world go round. That's what you do.
Yeah, I think it's a secret
But it's
ploy.
only a matter of time until
They
you
just
do
want
it.
to live on Mars, and that's why.
Yeah. Once you break them, then it's like, okay, now we can evolve that.
I think that
group
they're
of people.
secretly just really wanting to live on Mars.
I don't know about Mars in particular, but I would say you can fix a lot of the problem, and we have limited tools at this point in time. What's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about like how they discovered black holes, and it was essentially from what I took from the video was like, hey, they had the technology to pick up on this anomaly out in space. They didn't know what it meant. Then 30 years later, somebody else invented something else, and that could pick up something else, and they put those two pieces of data together. They still didn't figure out what it was until about 30 years later, somebody else made something, and they put that information together with the previous information, and it made a whole picture, and they're like, now we know exactly what that is. And now, we might not know how to interact with it, but now we know for sure it's that. So, as society moves forward, the past problems are not going to be the future problems. We might not have wars in the future, but we might have a whole other level of problems. And there's always going to be a disconnect of sorts. Like I said, until we have the hive mind thing, it's not really going to be motivation.
But if we have hive minds, then are we still human?
I think that might be the highest level of being human, right? The highest level of being a thing that's created
So
by
would
a
you,
partner.
if they had the technology to put a chip in your head and be able to get the internet and communicate with anybody anytime?
I think most people wouldn't do it because all your
But
deepest,
would you-
darkest secrets would be out there, and you
would you
you
do
know,
it?
If you're still living an
I'm
individual life,
asking, would you do
would
it?
I do it? No. The first grouping of
Jesus.
people, no.
You are an awesome guest. Like, you get on a track and you're like, why don't you speak? And you talk for like 3 minutes of something
You should put a
that
timer.
I already understand what you're saying.
You need one of those chess timers where they click, but for the other person.
But do you
hey,
get
time
that?
out.
But let me ask you this as feedback.
Yeah.
Those times where you say, let me finish, and then I say quickly a summary of everything that you were going to say.
I think that it sounds like you're looking at, like, if I had a car and it had 4 wheels, I think you're focused on the front wheels, and I'm going, there's 3 more wheels to focus on. There's you know, I got 2 in the back and I got 1 spare. Like, we got to discuss the whole picture.
You know, we can stop and then listen.
And
we can both
to me,
listen to this
yeah.
podcast and again, and I can go back and show you the times where you said, let me finish, and then anyway.
You know what it is? It's because I have this like 5-sentence combo that I'm like, it starts here, I'm gonna bring up this concept, then I'm gonna add this, then I'm gonna add that, and this is my creation. And that's what I want you to interact with, but and I do the same thing. I'm not gonna lie, I cut you off. Right? But in the same way, I'm like, listen, there's more to this puzzle. I wanna hand you the whole puzzle. I don't want you to be like, it's a giraffe.
Right, I'm trying to give you hints that I already understand all the pieces you're building. We don't need to go and have you put all the pieces. But I am trying to understand that sometimes people need, even though if we're both on the same page, there's a value in letting one person say the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if we can get, there's times there's certain people and dynamics you can get, and they both clue in that they both understand what they're talking about, and they can not say everything. You know, I guess I'd be bad for them.
We're 2 magnets that get close and we start pushing away. Right now, if we had another barrier, we could be floating like this, but because we push so close and we're so similar, we either snap and we're like, hey, actually, I wanted it to be the other way, or I want it to be more like this. But yeah, we're very similar in the same sense. And
but
we take a step back and then let each other speak. Yeah.
But okay, let me ask this just real quick to wrap up. Let's ask a simple question. How would you solve the problem of people always wanting a simple solution to complex problems?
You give them the simple solution, and then they realize the simple solution is not simple.
But they don't learn from their mistakes, and they don't. They
Well, see,
just
now
grab
you're-
onto something else, and they always want the simple solution. And there's people that will always
let me ask you
manipulate them and give them a new simple solution.
Let me ask you this.
That's the thing.
Let me ask you this. Is everybody that person? Do you feel like
No,
everybody learns that way?
The problem is too high a percentage of people.
Yes, I will agree in that. And if I'm if I'm frank, I think if I look at all the things between like homophobia, racism, sexism, all this stuff.
Let me ask you this: how many conspiracy theories have you came up with on your own and used it as a tool to manipulate people?
No, zero.
Exactly. But there's people that are doing that.
Because they have a want, they're getting something out of it.
Yeah, there's people that are using like AI tools and
Yeah.
chatbots and all kinds of things
Yeah.
to push people's buttons. Maybe they're not even the people in power. Maybe they just have enough money and resources and smarts to build that power.
There's a level of selfishness that I think we all have, whether it's big or small, but we all have a version of selfishness that we activate, and I think...
Have you watched Star Trek?
A few episodes, not enough to say I'm a Trekkie or anything like that. I know a lot about it, but I'm familiar with the concepts a little bit.
Yeah, so my question is like, how do we get to there? How do we get to where...
I feel like one, that wouldn't be the end all be all.
No,
like
it isn't.
In the middle.
No,
Yeah.
that's the... They had a utopia, you know, in
If
quotes,
I honestly
right?
didn't, how do we get
So
to the
what
next
what
step?
they do, they keep exploring other planets.
I would say it's a series of evolution, right? And I'm not going to say the right way to say this, so just try to conform what I'm saying into the form that it should be with better words. But there's something that is the weakest link that's holding us back, right? So imagine for every person who's smart but is racist won't let another race do something, and so they're missing out on all the knowledge that comes with that race. They're holding the chain back. Every person who's sexist does the same thing. Every person who has any form of bigotry that stops them from allowing them to see the ultimate level of what they're looking for, they are the weak links and the anchors.
The thing is, humans are never going to stop being racist, sexist.
No, you can.
No. It's because it's pattern recognition, fight or flight.
It's incentive based.
It
is.
Incentive based. Yeah, incentive based. Well, however you want to form it, right?
Let's
how
put
do
it
we
under a
get
microscope.
here?
Let's look under a microscope real quick.
How did
right?
we get here, right?
We'll take the three examples: the
So
sexist, the racist, and the.
So
and
how
the
did we get
homophobic,
here?
Right.
Say that we are a one-cell organism in the ocean.
Evolution.
Right.
Okay.
And how did we get here? That's danger. Oh, that's food.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
And we're still doing that.
Well, we are still doing that, right? So right now, the weakest thing that's holding our evolution back are those things, right? So, okay, let's break down the beginning version of evolution. We'll fast forward. The rabbit and the snake is my analogy. There's a series of rabbits that are getting eaten by snakes, right? And at some point, there's one kind of rabbit that's faster than all the other snakes, right? And so all the rabbits are getting eaten by the snakes except for this really fast rabbit. And this fast rabbit multiplies. Now it's nothing but fast rabbits. And now they're outrunning all the snakes. Now it's on the snake side. All the snakes are dying out because they're not fast enough to catch the rabbit. But now, instead of a fast snake, it's a creative snake. So now the next evolution begins. Only the creative snake survives. Only the creative snake eats, right? So now you have a series of now the rabbit, the snake, the rabbit, the snake, until you get a new creature, right? That's what's happening in evolution. With humans, we are moving forward, and the thing that's dying out is going to be the thing that cannot keep being incentivized. That can't eat, that can't reproduce, right? If you don't reward homophobia, if you don't reward racism, if you literally cut it out like the problem that it is in a very Hitler-like way.
Well, like there's a lot of people that aren't born racist that
it's incentivized behavior, right? So they're
learning it from their family.
They're learning it from their family, or maybe just their surrounding environment, right? And their surrounding environment says, if you don't involve yourself in racism, if you don't play around with it, you're gonna get damaged. You're gonna be missing out on successful, whatever that is in this area, right? And so that person says, oh, when I do racist things, I get incentivized. When I don't do racist things, I get bullied or banished. So
it's about fitting in. I have to fit in.
The algorithm says, I need to fit in and I want to be successful where I'm at, right? And so that's why the people who travel around the most say, I can't do this thing everywhere. And so success in this area looks a lot different than success back in my hometown, right? But if you never leave your hometown, you're never going to stop that. And every once in a while, somebody leaves their hometown and we hate that person because we're like, wow, you really haven't learned a lot, right? So the person who's traveling around the most, they might have their own problems of things that need to be addressed, but they're not with that specific problem because they've learned to be incentivized in different ways, right? So it's the incentivization. If you can incentivize people to not do that thing, but it's hard. Nobody wants to travel to a small town and do that work. You know, you gotta be a missionary, but instead of for Jesus or religion, you gotta do it for homophobia. And it's like, how do you change everybody's life? You would have to take somebody with unlimited money, go to every single little sector and incentivize them in ways that they can't compete with. How do you do that with guys? Guys want girls, right? Or guys want guys, right? But you gotta supply them with that. You got your hierarchy of needs. First it's food, sleep, shelter, then it's, you know, human connection, then it's this and that, right? If you
but there is hope, right? Because the younger generation are going, what are you talking about?
We're either all gonna blow each other up, like it's gonna compound in that way where we all blow each other up, or it's gonna, you know, puff up and then reconstruct, and then puff up and then reconstruct, and then puff up and reconstruct. And I think like what is it, like the bone grows back twice as strong or something like that? I think it's something to that effect where it's like small breaks are just making us stronger and stronger, but we hate the break, but we like the heel. And I think as we're doing something, this would be the best piece of hope, right? Excuse me. Compounding information, right? We started here, and now we have more information, so we double that information, and then we're doubling that information, doubling that information. We're learning things twice as fast, triple as fast, exponentially as fast, right? It's gonna get to the point where you can sit somebody in a room, put them in front of a TV screen of sorts, or put it in front of their eyes or their ears or all their senses, and then they can experience so much so quick. And before even their social environment gets to them, they'll know the history of the world and how to interact. And so they'll step out of the booth and they'll be like speaking the same language or all the languages.
Would you ever take a survival course that taught you how to survive in the woods with no technology?
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to be in the woods. It's nice to be in the woods, and it's worth taking. You know what? No, let me take that back. I would take a course that taught you how to survive in the woods. I think that would be beneficial, whether it's apocalyptic or like, hey, sometimes you want to be in nature by yourself. And if you ever want to be like, hey, it's getting too crazy out there, let me run out there, be by myself in the woods. At least I can have that option. And so that would actually give you a little bit of hope when you're dealing with reality, and you're just like, at the end of the day, I could always just run to the woods. But I'm choosing not to because I feel like there's more incentives in society than out in the woods. But maybe that day will come where I think there's more, I can become friends with the chipmunks, You never know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are opting out for that right now. They're like, they have puppies and 2 friends versus deal with the rest of society.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been a great podcast. Do you feel like that's a good...
I think we got into some good stuff.
Yeah.
I think somebody's gonna watch this.
More.
Somebody's gonna watch this and be like, they don't talk a lot about comedy, and I think for 2 guys who aren't high.
No, it's an hour and 15 or something we did.
Yeah, I think
only about a half hour. And you know what? Anybody can just stop listening at any time.
I think we went over an hour and a half.
An hour 47.
Hour 47.
Okay, so thank you for watching, everybody. And
we'll see you next time.
This has been Comedy or
Comedy.
Worse.
Ah, damn.
Oh, so close.